Eric?
It was your idea.
Yeah, but I couldn't do it without you.
Oh, that's very kind.
Eric joined us early on. We were one of the first to look at the use of artificial intelligence to, in fact, extract data from documents. We had an investment in an artificial intelligence company. Unfortunately, they were not able to accomplish it. So Eric, after a year of attempting to work with them, joined us to make Rockport what it is today.
Yeah, I think you had this other product that you were working on that you said, it might have some value, but it's just on the side. And then we started looking at it more and more and realized that it was a pretty valuable product that clients needed. It was your whole idea of, how do they actually aggregate all this data? How do they produce all of the analysis they need to send it to get ratings?
Rockport was really a glimmer in my eye. And you took that from nothing to the product that it is today. As I mentioned previously, it is about $1.5 trillion of assets in Rockport today. And that was done by the team, with the three of us, but as a team.
Rick, and don't tell him I'm saying this, but, was really a visionary ahead of his time, that a lot of banks were just using Excel to manage all of this data around their commercial real estate, their conduit. There were very old systems and really weren't thinking about this as a value add to them.
I was the banker that was trying to securitize just using Excel, and it was no fun whatsoever. And so we said there's got to be a better way.
Yeah, we had one institution that came to us that said, we have a little minor problem. We have positions. We are a first lien lender with prime loans. But we also bought some bonds that are backed by properties. And then we have some risky loans. And the problem is those are in 3 different departments, each of which have a separate system. And therefore, we do not really know what we own. We know that there are some loans that we turned down as loans that ended up in bonds that we bought as bonds. So could you help us kind of decipher what we've got? Way back when we first started putting the TREP database together, I received a request from one of the bankers saying, hey, your bond structures are great. However, those bonds are only as good as the loans underneath them, and those loans are only as good as the properties, and you have no property information. Could you put some basic real estate information into your bond library? Since we had none, Will and Eric put a team together and spent the summer reading through prospectuses and pulling commercial real estate information out of the prospectuses and putting them into the database.
And I'm pretty sure at the end of the summer I said, I'm never doing that again. But I think it actually was a great learning experience because of all of that data entry, I think I had an appreciation for building systems after that to make it easier. Because that's really what a lot of our clients were doing, was just manually typing in data across the board for their internal data, not just the market data that we were working.
Very much so. One of our reasons for being is that we have, in the person of Eric and his team, tremendous technical knowledge, but we have a general understanding, A, of the market, and B, of the instruments in the market. Therefore, we're in a much better position to create the products that we've created.
Yeah, so only about 30 years of history together.
Yeah, I think not having a political bone in our body when we're discussing what needs to happen with the company, what next challenge do we need to overcome, being able to just talk plainly about it and get through topics is a unique experience. I think that's also something we've kind of tried to kind of exude as we've grown and really make this a place where good ideas win and we can really grow.
No, it's key. Having done it as long as we've done it, there are many times when you'll have a technical person, a CTO, that has religious beliefs as it relates to what is the appropriate software. And we'll take you down a path based on those beliefs, not necessarily based on what you really want to be using. And with the relationship that we have, that has never been an issue.
We're trying to meet the business needs. Like, what problems are our clients having? How do they overcome them? Not, this is the next great flavor of technology that we should use. I think there's a lot of innovation happening. That's great. But, balancing that with the business value is kind of always been our focus.
Yeah, as we've talked about, we went from the world of basic type programming to Unix type program to Windows type program to
cloud computing, the emergence of AI this round, not what we used 20 years ago.
And that's one of the most difficult things for a company to mature through, is to go through different technology over time. It has killed a lot of companies.
Well, I think the SaaS model was just emerging at the time. I think they really called them ASPs, application service providers. But Salesforce was really, starting up in that space. And a lot of banks were really skeptical and saying, let's kind of outsource this or move our data outside of the organization. So a lot of it was these internal systems, desktop applications that either people are filling out, or like we said before, Excel was really kind of the main technology used to manage these, billion-dollar portfolios.
Yeah, it was a bit schizophrenic, because you on one hand would have some forward-thinking institutions that would say, hey, we expect you to be doing this. On the other hand, the majority of institutions would say, we will not approve that or touch it. So you just had to serve, and we had clients in both camps. So you had to be able to serve both camps.
Yeah, so I think that was like in the early years, this had started as kind of a desktop application that, we had installed in our clients' environments. And then I think what we found over time is that we could innovate and provide a lot more kind of features by bringing it into a place where we're hosting and not having the clients worry about it. So I think that was really the initial thought, which is, how do we make this something that we can leverage and grow with a lot of clients, and not kind of just do kind of more of the older enterprise model, which was these big systems that get installed and then never get updated. It was really trying to get to, how do we take all the great things that we've built, but kind of see where the market's going, what things we're going to need to support in the future, because the type of business that was happening in those early years was going to change. I mean, I think that's something that you really brought to the table, that this is something that we have to constantly be evolving, because if we build software to solve today's problems, by the time it's done and released to the clients, they have new problems. I think a lot of it is like just breaking down what our assumptions are. And I think there's nothing that is kind of too sacred to question in the company, right? If we see that there's maybe something that we've been doing, that there are better ways, getting into that, digging into that, and breaking it down, versus, I think other organizations may be a little uncomfortable, questioning too much of what's been built because of kind of pride of authorship. Well, someone did this, so you don't want to kind of go against what they did.
And that's one of our axioms, which is intelligent people with these same assumptions will come up with the same results. And so you have to figure out where the assumptions are off. And that takes quite a while sometimes.
In kind of the early years, it was very closed environments. Like, a lot of these systems were not talking together in either the clients, or there weren't enough SaaS systems that did these kind of specialized areas in commercial real estate. So I think that, I think has been the evolution, which is the access to market data, the access to different types of systems that maybe specialize in areas that are not directly, commercial real estate finance, but may influence, a bank or an institution's decisions or analysis. That interconnected landscape, you have to be able to play in that, and to really enable our clients to leverage that.
Yeah, those disconnected systems that we talked about earlier required multiple inputs of the same information. That has been enhanced considerably. Way back when we first started to form an article that had a pencil every time the same data was entered. It was 17 different times. This is now way back. Now that today is narrowed way down to only, in many cases, just a couple times. It will be in a few years. Data will go in once. It'll be clean data. It'll be available. You won't be manually entering it. So that it'll be a much more effective and efficient system. It's getting there.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that we've really had to focus, which is with this sprawl, how do you know your data is accurate? How do you know that kind of the correlations between these things, all these disparate inputs, actually make sense? So I think that's been one of the areas that we've had to focus on a lot, and has been our kind of consistent, data. It's that this is crucially important. This is what we work with clients, and I think we prove that through our implementations with clients and the ongoing support we give.
And one of our reasons that are in a position in the marketplace as a true alternative for the future is that we live that in the TREP world, and we lived it in the Rockport world. So we've been living it for a lot of years, and hopefully that experience has allowed us to see ahead.
Well, all your success with Trek was fantastic in terms of all the stuff you learned, and yeah, this helped us maybe cut some edges off.
Yeah, I think we did have to relearn some of the things that you were able to kind of prove out over the years. So I think that gave us a leg up getting into this space, which is, it wasn't like a startup that had no experience with commercial real estate and with the complexities and the problems. I mean, heck, you helped invent some of the space.
You know, it's interesting because you got hundreds of new startups that have the AI of the future or have all the technology of the future, but have never done a real estate transaction or have any real detailed real estate experience. So it's interesting, and we look at it as a future opportunity for us.